to the degree that you want something is the degree you're afraid of not having.
Yeah.
God, I wish I started when I was younger. I go, well, yeah, but you didn't. So shut the fuck up and let's
Right.
keep going.
Right.
Like, you can't.
Nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. Because it's not till then that it's really real.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is way worse than I thought. It's like, oh yeah, it's way, way worse than you thought.
Yeah.
But luckily, there's more to you than you think.
I wish I knew then what I do now. I go back and tell myself that I am worth it. Maybe the gift was to slow down. Cast the ripples of change, the currents arranged with grace. We are safe. We are safe. I wish I knew then what I do now. I tell myself that we were perfect. We were just kids and overwhelmed. And all the while deep inside we had the music. We are caving into love. We'll sustain. We were made for these times, child. Once again, we are safe. We are safe. We are safe. We are safe. Who cast the plans to see we will live in this fantasy? Reality at your feet. Oh, let's celebrate these scars. We're not many worlds apart. Help me find the words to call you into me. We are safe. We are safe. We are safe. We are safe. We are
Yes. Thank you for that, brother. You got the pick in there.
Did the pick go in?
Yes, it did. I thought you did that on purpose. I thought that was a ninja move.
No.
Where you were just like, I'm done with the pick. I'm going to slide it in the guitar because I don't want to put it anywhere.
It's a great idea. We should start doing that.
I thought it was
You thought it was
intentional.
cool?
Yeah, because it was so slick.
I was actually,
I was wow.
trying to throw it.
You threw it in the guitar.
Well, now I know
See,
next time to do it that way, not this way.
No, I like it. I
Thank
think you
you.
keep it. I think this is your signature
I'm
move.
just going to keep it in there for the rest of the interview.
I mean, I think you should collect them and just have a bunch in there, and that way you can use it as a rattle
Right.
if necessary.
Right, let's see. Is it a rattle? Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but it needs like 20.
He's 20.
And then it could be like a rain stick.
rain stick. And
Yeah.
then we could, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Instead of using a shaker, I'm going to start shaking my guitar.
We were talking about innovation right before you started playing,
beforehand.
you know?
Right.
And this is the innovation we were looking for. We called it down from the ether.
Right.
And said, innovation is happening now, and you just learned a new move.
That's it. Throw picking guitar. I mean, it's similar. Like, I was just looking out here. It's raining out here. And where I live in California right now, it is completely like a smoke bomb went off. Wild, crazy place to live on the West Coast right now.
Yeah.
But something that's crazy, whenever I play, gigs usually, like before I played Red Rocks, there was a crazy rainstorm and they literally said to me before my set, like, we might have to cancel your set. And when I played Electric Forest, there was an electrical fire. Like, I had to literally go on stage and say, hey, everybody, we need to evacuate. I played one song and like we had to evacuate the entire festival. And like, it always happens that when I play, like when really important gigs happen, for me, I would say this is important to get to spend time with you, Aubrey, but it's raining outside. And to me, that's like, I don't know why it happens. I think I understand why now, but.
Okay, why?
Well, I write a lot of my music. It's based on a lot of has to do with my own healing,
Of course.
and my own grief, my own depression, and in my faith that I was born into, and the one that I practice is Judaism, and in my people's faith, one of the deep understanding of how we get rain, because we're an agricultural people. We're essentially farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Our entire calendar is based on the lunar system, the lunar calendar of when to harvest and when to plant seeds. And when we are able to access our grief, and we're able to access the places in our life that are challenging, and we're able to vocalize, that's where the healing comes from. And when we can really step into the grief and really step and move through it, then the waters come, because the waters represent simcha, which is like the happiness.
Mm.
And right now,
And
literally
also a cleansing, right?
cleansing.
In so many different cultures, the water represents a cleansing. Go down to the river.
Right.
If you're grieving, and in so many indigenous cultures, go to the river, let the river wash away.
Yeah.
That's coming. Same with the rain.
Right. And then that's the thing about that too is, Judaism, we're an earth-based faith. We're a people that sing about the waters, sing about the mountains, sing about our connection, divine connection to Adama, earth, Pachamama. And it's just such a special thing to see how a lot of these faiths and peoples, we have so many similarities. Like, you wouldn't know that if you didn't talk to people about it. But there are, if you look at like a lot of spirituality I've seen between different indigenous cultures, aspects of Judaism, aspects of Christianity, the Gnostics, there are commonalities.
The deep mystical and spiritual underpinnings of so many of these great, both philosophies and religions, are all pointing to the same thing.
Same direction. And it's so crazy how in the world there's so much divisiveness, right? And we're in a crazy time of that right now.
We are. It's also because I'm, from my heredity, I'm mostly Jewish, 87% Jewish. That's what the DNA report says, 87% Ashkenazi. And I grew up, and that was a part of my father's side of the family, still active faith. My mother's side didn't practice at all. But the Judaism that I was exposed to was nothing to do with anything that you've said, nor any of the things that, and I was talking to you before this podcast about, Stephen Pressfield actually exposed me to a couple of the kind of Kabbalist, like deep mystical underpinnings of Judaism that I was never exposed to, because the Judaism that I was exposed to was all kind of the empty stories that were passed down, like the story that relates to the menorah and the nights where the oil burned, and then the Seder and the times where Jews were suffering. And I was like, yeah, I get it. My ancestral people suffered a lot, but that was the Judaism that was, and it's cool. It's nice. You celebrate it and you eat some weird things and you like have these, but it didn't have any real mysticism there. So I was just like, okay, interesting stories, fun thing to do with that side of the family, but it didn't grab me at all. Whereas the experiential spirituality, where I could feel something, or the Native American spirituality, which was very much talking about what you said. I mean, you had Adama, you said was the Jewish word for the earth.
Yeah.
Well, in native cultures, that's, sometimes Pachamama, or sometimes you also use that word as well. Mm-hmm. And that grabbed me because I was like, oh, this feels right.
Right.
This feels right. But I think Judaism is doing the world a disservice in certain aspects by not actually pushing that forward to the front side. Like, keep all the stories, great.
Right.
But like push that forward more too. And it seems like that's kind of what you're doing, now with your vocation.
Right. I mean, I would call this right now in the Jewish world, I would say in all faiths, we're in like a Renaissance spirituality. I mean, we could see it. Yoga is becoming, in a way, I mean, the practice of yoga, I mean, there's a lot of talk about appropriation and whatnot, right? Between it, like, we obviously, it's an interesting conversation to have. I personally believe that the practice of yoga should be something that everyone should have access to. And at the same time, we should understand about the teachings, where it comes from, and name the teachers. And so we're in this renaissance. And I think sometimes when we talk about these kinds of practices, we forget about the teachings of our ancestries. And I think it's important to continue to bring that up, and at the same time enact the deep bhakti of Judaism and the deep bhakti of devotion of all faiths. And I think that's actually what people are attracted to. So when I play like music festivals, for instance, I play like Bhakti Fest as a Jewish artist, which is a yoga festival in Joshua Tree. And I play Shakti Fest and Hanuman Festival in Colorado. I just did a virtual festival with them. And I talk to so many people. They come to my sets. I lead Shabbat, or I lead a set on Friday night, and I sing my music that's based on Hebrew text and based on Shabbat, or the Torah, which is the Old Testament. And people say, oh my God, I never knew Judaism had those aspects. I didn't know that, there's something called Jewish meditation or Jewish chant. And I said, so where did you go? They said, well, I went to, I didn't like my Jewish upbringing, right? For the fact that it was all about the Holocaust, which is important to talk about, but it was so grief driven.
And which Holocaust? The one from Egypt, the one from Germany? Right. It's about it's a story about suffering, and typically is what I've been exposed to the most.
Right. But the thing is, it pushes, like, if we continue to talk about that as the central point, what I've seen is in a time it's actually pushed a lot of people away from the spiritual aspects. So what they've done is a lot of Jews have gone to India and they've connected with Hare Krishna. They've connected with all the different deities in India. And now you see like incredible artists that I fall in love with. Like, some of my aspects to connecting with spiritual music have been like Krishna Das, who's a Jewish guy. Yeah. Jai Uttal, who's also a Jewish guy. These are both Grammy nominated kirtan singers. And the reason being is, the aspect of spirituality is right on the tip of your tongue. You can feel it. You can breathe it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. I think that's what needs to be less sizzle, more substance, less story and more like sensation and feeling. And I think as that is happening, and I love hearing that from your perspective inside one of the great traditional faiths of humankind. I mean, what is it? Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. I mean, there's only a handful. You can probably count the great faiths on one hand, but within one of those faiths is this kind of renaissance. And I think you can see that in multiple different aspects. And the idea that it's appropriation, I think, is nonsense, because the world needs all of the medicine. Right. Like every bit of medicine that we can get from everywhere, we need. And anything that's creating more division, saying, okay, this medicine is just for me, this medicine is just for you. Well, how about we all need to heal the whole fucking world, or there's not going to be a world. So you can hold on to your little tiny piece of this, or share everything and embrace the fact that as one human species, we are the last thing standing between the earth thriving and the earth facing significant challenges, and we need all of it. And we need the faiths. We can't discard the faiths. The faiths are a great tool. It would be like, another one of these arguments is, fuck McDonald's, right? Well, okay, yeah, McDonald's is serving a lot of shitty cheeseburgers. However, their food distribution network is absolutely essential. How about instead of fuck McDonald's, how about we, through our buying patterns, educate McDonald's to serve healthier food?
Right.
And that way, like, we're embracing it. So instead of, oh yeah, fuck capital R religion, how about we encourage capital R religion through how we show up to the faith that say, no, we want more substance. We want to go deeper. We want to get behind the layers of the stories. And that's how I think we're going to create the greatest change, not by pushing things away, but by like embracing and reinvigorating them with heart.
Right. I mean, right now, even in Judaism, we have this whole movement called Earthbased Judaism. So I'm part of an organization called Wilderness Torah.
Cool.
So we go out to the desert, usually the Panamint Valley of Mojave Desert, and we light a sacred fire. We tend that fire for the whole festival, because in our way, and our indigenous way, we used to, that was the original altar, was we'd light a fire and we'd give offerings to the fire in sacred reciprocity to spirit, and we'd make certain offerings that resemble certain prayers, similar to in many indigenous cultures. And then there's places like Urban Adamah in Berkeley, which is like a farm, teaching people on how to have eco kashrut, how to eat in a good way, and how to be in accordance with the halakha, the law of Judaism, the law of how to ethically eat your food and how to sustain your food organically, locally, and however that may be. And so I'm just seeing that happening more and more, and I'm just really excited for this time that we're in.
Was your upbringing, were you always brought up in, with Judaism that had these aspects, or were you brought up in a more traditional Judaism and then kind of found your way within the faith to where you're at now?
Well, yeah, I grew up Reform in a town called Laguna Niguel, Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
I was just there with my mom and my dad visiting a few days ago, and when you guys said, hey, come out to Austin, so I was stoked. So I came out, but I grew up in a Reform synagogue and called Temple Bethel, and I was actually not very excited about it, about praying. I would just show up and I'd watch people, and they'd shekel, do this thing, and I didn't know what they were doing, and they would be just singing these songs that I didn't want to sing, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I, a lot of the time during worship, I would go out and I'd sneak out and hang with my friends. My favorite part of going to temple was seeing my friends. It was not ever about the prayer. And when I was younger, I got way into hard rock music. It's awesome.
Yeah.
The Rain. Some of my favorite bands were Christian rock bands out of the hardcore movement. So like bands like Under Oath, they're out of Florida. Atreyu was out of Orange County, California. Throwdown. These were some just incredible power in this music, these breakdowns that would just like break open your soul. And I would go, and they'd be these mosh pits, and it would be this intense energy packed into a church. And then they would stop, and they would be like, we want to pray with Christ right now. We want to pray together. And I would always be like, this is weird. As the token Jew there. Like,
of course.
No one knew I was Jewish.
Not only is it odd enough to have a mosh pit in a church, but it's also odd enough for a Jew to be praying to Christ.
Right. And I didn't pray. I was kind of like, this isn't my thing. But there was something special about what was happening in there. And we didn't have like punk rock prayer going on when I was a kid. I mean, now there's a whole bunch of different options that you could probably find out there. But yeah, when I was a kid, I definitely wasn't down with it. And I was actually, a victim of multiple hate crimes as a kid. Like we had neo-Nazis when I was a kid down in Southern California. A lot of these children, I think, hid behind false ideologies that they knew nothing about.
It's all false ideologies. Right. So,
but they just wanted to pick on a kid, and they wanted to claim that they were a supporter of Hitler. And I got, swastikas on my books, and when I was, I've had multiple times where I was jumped for being Jewish, like beaten. And I think in a way that's obviously what has brought me to where I'm at now, where, I'm ultimately going out there and sharing about my faith. And it was almost like they beat God into me, like that they were trying to whatever they were trying to do, bully me. Usually it's the people who were bullied that are in so much pain, but I would think that what they were actually doing is like, almost like branding me even deeper in my heart with my connection with my people. And I got to say, when I think about all those people that picked on me as a child, I'm fucking grateful, because it has allowed me to step into who I am today. And I think of these people and I send them love, honestly. Like, I'm not hating them.
Yeah.
And that's really what I hope for the world, is that when we have people that rise up against us, usually it's because simply uneducated and a lot of the times really angry with themselves. And what I've learned is that when we can forgive and we can actually bless them on their journey, even if we can't touch them, even if we can't talk to them, to think about them and to pray and to say, you're forgiven. That actually, God willing, will support them in their life. But at the same time, I know for me, it has actually allowed me to surrender and to heal as well, because the pain of hating someone else, it's the worst to hate that feeling.
You're holding that anger, hoping that it hurts the person that you're angry with, but it doesn't. It just actually burns you on the inside. So whether or not, and I believe that it does, I believe that when you forgive someone, even if you're not speaking to them, that energetically, I believe we're all connected in the collective,
right?
In the collective. But so I believe it does have an impact on them when you forgive them in that way. But I also know for sure, unequivocally, that it helps you.
Right.
Like when you forgive, you're opening to that state that is going to be beneficial to you at the very least. And that's something for all of us to remember, is we will trick ourselves into thinking that our anger is actually some kind of retribution, some kind of payback, somehow evening the scales, creating justice, against those ones that had hurt us, but it's not. It's just hurting us further. And as we let that go, then we can really become free and really thrive.
I mean, that's my big prayer for the world right now. Essentially, I just want everyone I think it's a good thing not to forget. Remembering can be a great catalyst for change.
Yeah. There's a psychiatrist who I just interviewed, and he talks about the importance of making monuments for your pain. It's because we have this deep inclination that we don't forget. We don't want to forget. And so a lot of the time, the reason that we hold on to trauma, his theory, which I think makes a lot of sense, we hold on to trauma because we're creating a monument to our pain because we don't want it to be forgotten, right? But as soon as we can actually externalize that monument, write about it, put it out, tell a good friend or him as a therapist, what he tells people is like, you know what? I'll hold on to your pain for you. I'll never forget it. I'm going to hold on to that story, and I'll know always that it's there so you can let it go. And then and when he said that, I was like, whoa, like that's really powerful. So I think creating these memorials and creating these places where we can remember is important. It actually frees us then to actually let it go. Let the waters wash that all away, because we know that it's memorialized and we don't have to hold that there.
It's a great way to think about it. I'm gonna remember that one.
Yeah.
For when I leave here.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think ultimately too, we forgiving is a big gift. I was just watching the other day. I was home visiting my family, like I said, watching 60 Minutes with my fam. And now they're creating apparently these Holocaust exhibits where they've interviewed real survivors, and they've created programs where you talk to a survivor, even though they might have passed, and they can speak to you in real time. And they were talking about forgiveness, and this one of the survivors said that, the interview says, "How could you forgive Hitler? Could you forgive, the Nazis for what you've done?" And she said, "Yes, I have." She said it was the biggest healing, but she'll never forget.
Yeah.
So I hope that in my life that I can continue to forgive and remember these stories, essentially stories to connect people. I mean, that's really what story, I see story is a way to do. There's a lot of different intentionality behind story, but I think one of my biggest ways of when I play live, you know, my stories are another technology for connection.
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, which was all of the resistance that you faced from all the neo-Nazis, all the bullies, all the people who attacked you for your faith. You're grateful for all of that now. And that's a very stoic, you know, philosophy and a stoic belief that all of these things that are our resistance are actually our greatest ally if we can reperspect them in a different way. And I was reading, you know, one of the people who talks about this as well is Stephen Pressfield.
Right.
And I was talking about this with you earlier, and he actually names a Jewish term. He calls it Yetzer Hara, which is a force that's in opposition, seemingly. But I think the ultimate fruition of that is that the opposition is our ally if we can actually reperspect it. But explain like what that concept is from your understanding of the Yetzer Hara and how it contrasts with some of the other, you know, kind of mystical Jewish faith.
So great that we're talking about this. It's perfect. If you can't hear, there's thunder outside, so it's just like a great conversation.
Ryan, pump up that thunder. If not, you know, hit a sound card and like play a little thunder for everybody so they can get in the vibe.
Did you watch Looney Tunes when you were a kid?
A little bit.
Remember, you know, Bugs Bunny?
Of course.
Did you ever see? I mean, I think it was Bugs Bunny, but there was like the angel and the devil on the shoulder.
I think that happened to several Looney Tunes, but yes.
Right. I think it was. It's been a while. I haven't watched cartoons in a while. Although I did see one recently with like Midnight Mystic or something on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. Midnight Gospel, trippy. Anyways, bring it back. Bugs Bunny, Yetzer Hara, angel, devil. Yetzer Hara, like Judaism, we don't actually believe in like a devil. We don't believe in hell. There are aspects of, if you get deep enough into Kabbalah, I mean, Hasidic Judaism, there are aspects of like evil spirits. However, we can talk about that later if we want, but the Yetzer Hara is an aspect of your soul. So the soul has many different levels, right? There's the one of them, like the Yetzer Hara is, I think, translated to evil inclination. And then the soul, the neshama, is like, you know, the angelic. It's the light. And so, you know, I think for me, what it actually resembles is higher self, like higher consciousness, like, and then maybe something that is like a lower frequency. And the thing is, it's not that one's right or wrong. Essentially, it's listening to what feel like, for me, when I think of Yetzer Hara, I think what feels good in my body is a yes. It's a fuck yes, as a no. And, you know, you like, sometimes I'll get a thought to go do something that probably isn't the best alignment. Like last night, like I wanted to go out and see what was happening in Austin because I'm in Austin for 24 hours. And then I was thinking, wait, I have a coach, I have a peak performance coach. My coach, Shiva, would say, you know, you're like, I'm an athlete. Like you need to go, you're getting ready for a big interview tomorrow. You should go to sleep. You should, you know, do your yoga and pray. And that's, so essentially my Yetzer Hara it wasn't like a bad thing. It was like, go out, you know, and see what was going on in town. But my neshama, my higher self was like, maybe you should go to sleep, you know, maybe drink some turmeric juice and you know, essentially get ready for today. And that's basically what it is. Now, therefore, that idea of the Yetzer Hara and the higher and lower self, that's something you probably wouldn't read about. It's kind of my own Torah, when I say Torah, it's my own oral understanding of the world. And the Torah is, you know, obviously intrinsic to Judaism. It is a specific scroll and a specific story of the story of creation and of everything. And however, what I'm kind of sharing is kind of my own personal journey with dancing with the text and dancing with the oral story and kind of weaving my own, because I think that's the beauty of, I think, when we start to connect our ancestry and we start to really get to know who we are as human beings, those texts, those deep understandings become intrinsic to the now. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Well, we have to be able to translate them to our own knowing, our own gnosis. And if we just rely on the words or somebody else's story, that's going to be an approximation at best anyways. But a lot of times we'll hang on words as if words are the truth. Words are always a lie.
Right.
All of the time, because they're an approximation.
You say they're always a what?
A lie.
A lie.
They're never true, because to express truth, you can't condense it to a word, right? It can be an approximate. It can be mostly true. If you call something snow, like, yeah, it's mostly right. Like, it's not like it's a total lie.
Right.
However, there's so many different varying degrees of snow. You're not going to nail it exactly. The Eskimos have 17 words for snow. So they're getting closer depending on which one they say. Oh, this is the fluffy kind of, frozen water. And this is the icy kind of frozen water. But we just say snow. And it's like, well, which one? What are you talking about?
Right.
What do you decide whether it's that? Is it sleet? What is that? Is this a wintry mix or is this a snowstorm? Every word that we have is just a condensation of an idea that's used to kind of loosely convey. So if we're reading something, it's just an idea. Anytime we use the word God or soul or Yetzer Hara or Neshama, we're just coming up with an approximation, but we have to understand what it means ourselves, like beyond the words. And that's, I think, what you're going to. And it seems like for some people, the Yetzer Hara, yours was like, go out and like sightsee in Austin. Other people might be, go out and get wasted. And if you find an 8-ball, rip the whole thing, because you only got one day and you can't fly home with it. So you might as well. And then let me go to Backpages and see if there's any prostitutes that are available now that I ripped that 8-ball and I can't fall asleep. And like, you'll go down this dark path. And I think that goes to that Native American fable, which is, I have these positive urges and these negative urges, what should I do? And it's like, young warrior asking a chief, well, it depends on which wolf you feed, the wolf that once is hungry for the 8-ball, or the wolf that's hungry for delivering your medicine and your service. The more you feed the neshama, the stronger that becomes. The more you feed the Yetzer Hara, the stronger that force becomes.
True.
And then the other, to kind of bring this together where I was originally, it seems like on the individual, that makes a lot of sense and helps to explain that. But then in the collective, it's like the whole world has the neshama, like the soul of the world, the soul of humanity. And then the collective Yetzer Hara, which is anger, division, fear, all of these different aspects, all of the compulsions, the greeds, the avarice, the lusts that are out of alignment. And so like we can look at these in all these different ways, but if it wasn't for both of those forces, we wouldn't actually have free will. We'd have a stacked game. We'd have loaded dice.
Right.
Like if we didn't have a strong Yetzer Hara in the collective and that wasn't available, then everybody would just be enlightened quick.
We'd all be robots.
We would all be robots, right? There wouldn't really be choice. Like both have to be in tension for us to be able to navigate. So that this thing isn't a fucking movie. It's a video game where we get to make real choices. Right. So like you got to celebrate both of these things. Be like, oh, cool. I got both of these aspects. That means I get to choose. Dope. Because choice is fucking awesome.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for all my challenges, all the moments my Yetzer Hara has spoken to me. And I know, I'm guessing, I'm curious about you. Like in your life, Aubrey, where have been places that ultimately the Yetzer Hara spoke to you and you listened and you did it. And then you realized that it actually ultimately had brought you to the path for you to understand something new about yourself.
Always.
Right.
But that's the thing. Like, is there like a key moment where I was listening to those kind of darker, baser impulses? Yeah. I mean, I can think about, in my journey in polyamory, there was, there was certain one in particular, but certain times there would be a person that I knew that I shouldn't be dating. And then, I don't want to go into the particular details, but there would be consequences to that, like dishonesty and ways that it would create disruption and dissonance and turbulence. But ultimately, through the end of that, in the chaos that ensued, was a deep and valuable lesson. So it's like, yeah, I shouldn't have fucking done that. I should have listened to my neshama. It was like, stay away. Like, do not get involved with this person. But then again, I look in hindsight and I'm like, well, I'm kind of grateful I did get involved with that person, because that taught me this very painful lesson. Some of my most painful lessons taught me this extraordinarily painful lesson. And without that lesson, I wouldn't be the man I am today. So maybe the Yetzer Hara and the Neshama are actually buddies.
Maybe they're
fish bumping each other and being like, we'll just, divide ourselves, but it's the same.
It's the same. Essentially, that's what it is. Like when we come down to consciousness, what I've realized in my prayer practice is, either when I'm on a vision quest or I'm practicing hippodadut, which is the practice of going outside and screaming out to God and crying out to God. It's also a Jewish technology of prayer.
I need to hear more about that at some point, but continue with your...
Yeah. We start to, the veil is lifted, and I've realized the veil gets lifted, and maybe I'm asking for help. I'm praying, I'm asking for help, or I'm struggling with something. Usually what happens is at the end of my process of going through my healing, which is, crying, whatever it may be, whatever I'm doing in that moment to release the trauma of whatever has happened. I realize that it's one voice, and its creator is always speaking to us. Creator is always speaking to us, and we have the opportunity of listening in that moment. Sometimes we don't hear the exact voice that we think we hear. And regardless, it's going to get us back to the path,
right?
This path that we're walking together. And that path for me, I know doesn't look like, hey, Aubrey, like you and I, like, I'm going to walk towards you. But like, actually that path might look like a spiral. It might look like I'm going to go into a different linear timeline and then pop up over here and then go over here and then go there.
Right.
But
the path might look like, when you woke up in the Hangover movie and there's a tiger laying around and there's like a body somewhere,
right?
And there's like fuck. What happened? How did this path lead?
Exactly. But they found Doug.
They found Doug. He was on the roof.
He was on the roof
after all. And then they made several more Hangovers, so it all worked out.
Right. Yeah, that was a great movie. I actually saw it recently again. It's the kind of stuff I like. Like I love humor like that. And that's the thing is like, I have a prayer practice and whatnot, but I enjoy, like, Curb Your Enthusiasm, for instance, Larry David. Like there's a lot of profanity, but that's also like, for me, in a way, it's how I connect to other people. Like I feel like sometimes the profanity, if it's done in the right way, it just makes somebody real.
100%.
And I've just noticed, like, at times, I connect with people, and it's like it's almost like they're putting up a front, and I just really resonate with people that are real and authentic. And that's what I loved about the Hangover, because everyone could kind of understand. They might have had a night where they went out to Vegas and they let loose and they had a crazy time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So, the whole movie was a spiritual experience.
No doubt. No, they're learning about friendship, learning about what they loved, what they cared about in this crazy way.
Right.
There's a moment that I had with a shaman, and I was working one-on-one with a shaman, and we were in a medicine journey, and he said the wildest thing. He was like, I feel Christ energy here. Like, would you like to interact? Would you like to meet that energy? And I was like, of course. And we're deep in the medicine, and so the energy comes tangible, and I could see it in my own third eye and my own vision. And it was this spiraling emerald column that was just swirling, and it was like the deepest, loving, calming energy. And the message came through that I could share absolutely any aspect of my deepest, darkest, shameful secret, any urges, anything that I would judge myself for, and the Christ energy wouldn't even flinch. Like it was a love that wouldn't even hold a record of wrong. You would never need to ask it for forgiveness, because the forgiveness was already pre-granted. It loved you impeccably no matter what. And it was just this absolutely all-embracing love. And then contrasting after that was the energy that you would typically call the devil or Lucifer or Satan, whatever. There's a bunch of different names for that other force of resistance. And the message that came through from that was, this is the opposite energy, similar to what I was saying, that allows us to be in polarity, allows tension. So like both poles of the magnet, you have Christ and then you have resistance or the devil, and that's what allows it. But as such, that energy, if you wanted to make it discarnate and you wanted to anthropomorphize it, is also just an angel with the grace to hold down the darkness so that we could have the world.
Right.
But both ultimately fed straight into the same divine source, into what Hindus would call Brahman or source or God. You know, God is a tough word to use. But it was just a really beautiful understanding of everything that we're talking about, that even these things that we've vilified or these things that we've, praised, on some levels it makes sense. Of course, we want to steer more towards that all-encompassing love rather than the force of resistance. Because also when I was encountering that dark energy, I was like, wow, that's really admirable that you're holding down all the darkness. And then the message was also like, yeah, but don't get it twisted. I will still fuck you up. Like that was like still the idea is like, but I'm going to continue to do my job. You can't just like pat me on the head and I become like a trained pit bull. Like I'm here to fuck you up. That is my sacred job. And so just understanding that though helps you recalibrate everything, because it helps you recalibrate even everything that's going on in the collective. What if all of this is happening for us?
Right.
Is the absolute bare minimum viable resistance necessary for people to wake up? And maybe we need more. Maybe we need to add, more different extra vaccines and blast shields and masks and division and more of these things that are challenging everything right now, more viruses, more all of this stuff. If we need that to wake up, maybe that's all a blessing. And maybe we'll look back in 20 years and be like, wow, 2020 was the best year for humankind ever. It gave us the resistance that we needed to fucking wake up. And maybe we'll say that, maybe we won't, but typically we always do. And typically we're always grateful for these things in the past. So all of these things that we vilify, maybe just take a pause and just go like, well, maybe it's bad. We don't know yet. Like, who's to say? Maybe it's the absolute necessary thing that we needed.
This is the crazy time in the world.
It's crazy. And it is absolutely, but that's also from our immediate perspective. Like, we don't know, is it crazy or is it like, wow, this makes fucking perfect sense looking back 10 years from now?
Right. I mean, we won't understand what it is until, like when we take a look back at what this moment is. I could tell you, since everything happened in March, when I look back at everything, I see the healing that has happened in my life, in my family's life, and the people around me. But when you're going through like the transformation, when you're in the cocoon, when you're the caterpillar in the cocoon and you're in that place of, the tightness, and then you're reborn, like you can't see everything for what it is, but time will tell. Time will tell. I see this as a great awakening. And it's painful for a lot of people, and a lot of people are struggling. And holding that too, and seeing that people, and what I've noticed is like, I have this new single that came out that I just played earlier, We Are Safe.
Yeah.
It's really all about that. It's about the healing that I've been through. It's about the narrative of that. And at the same time, it's a mantra. It's not to gaslight and to say healing and to say that there's no struggling in the world. It's actually a mantra to call in it and to call in the consciousness in the now of what you're talking about, that we are safe. And to use the words as a protective invocation. Because, words are, you said words are lies, and words can also be magic.
They can be they're also always spells.
Right. Literally casting spells. So Rebbe Nachman, he was the founder of Breslov Judaism, and he would say that in every single word is a world of consciousness. And then when we're speaking words, that these worlds become manifest and they never disappear. And that, so what to say about that is just to be conscious of what we're speaking about, the intentionality, that they are vibration. And so, yes, we are in a time of that is crazy, but at the same time, as a human, I can also hold, and I know that maybe you too, that this is a time of great change and healing. And I think that we will probably look back at this time and we'll see it as a very potent time.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I have no idea what is going to come. However, I do really believe in my soul as a musician that live music will come back, and that we'll somehow come back to a place where we can gather together again. And I look forward to that. I really look forward to sharing.
Eventually we will.
Right.
Because people like the human connection is so absolutely vital.
Right.
And we cannot do without it. We think we can do without it, but loneliness is far deadlier than any virus. It's the number one cause of early case mortality in the world, more than smoking, more than obesity, more than anything.
Social
loneliness
isolation?
kills. Yeah. Well, it's not only social isolation, it's the perception of isolation. So it's not actually how many people you interact with, it's whether you perceive yourself to be lonely or not. And so we're going to wake up to that truth. That's the truth that's riding behind all of this, that we're taking these preventative measures by actually feeding the greatest disease and pandemic of all, the epidemic of loneliness, which is only increasing in every single generation, younger generations to older generations, not just people in retirement homes that feel that way. It's across the board. And we're going to start to see that. So regardless of what's happening, we're eventually going to realize like, oh, whoops, like we're solving this one problem or trying to address this one problem, but ignoring the biggest problem of all, which is the absence of human connection, which is the most healing force in the entire world, and I think we'll eventually find that. So with that said, I'm also confident that eventually we'll get back to music. It's just, we don't know which road is this going to take. Are we going to go down the Yetzer Hara road and it's just going to take, you're going to go through multiple Hangover movies and then figure it out? Or are we going to take, that quicker path, just following the heart and finding that wisdom? Probably somewhere in between.
But the thing that I love about all this is it's at our fingertips right now.
Yeah.
Like the access to holistic living, to podcasts like this one, to music that is the vibration that really can create space for us to move through challenging chapters of our life. I mean, we're just in a place, we're talking about a renaissance in Judaism. There's literally a renaissance of spiritual awakening happening right now. And it's everywhere. I'll just go on my phone and check it out. And I mean, that's the thing, is like, what are we focusing on? What are we listening to? What are we consuming? It's like, we think so much about, MCT oils. I was just out there doing my vocal warm-ups and I was checking out your MCT oils, fantastic for the brain. Like, what are we consuming for our bodies for ultimate health? But also like, what are we listening to?
Yeah. What
are we watching? What are we consuming? That's like the ultimate health as well. And I think that because we're in some, I would call it like a great purge in the world, we wake up sometimes, and I know I'll wake up and I'll be on my iPhone like some days, because I'm a human being. These are my hangover moments, my Yetzer Hara moments. Yeah. I wake up and I'm like, oh,
yours are so mild compared to most of us.
What's that?
Your Yetzer Hara moments are so mild.
I know, but
that's good. Right. It's still Yetzer Hara for you,
But I mean, there, and then and then I have my other days where I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm on my meditation. Boom, I'm on my yoga practice. I'm on my davening practice. Okay, I'm out. I also have other Yetzer Hara moments. I've suffered from addiction and stuff like that as well. And
I feel like you're going to say addiction to like pasta or like I was addicted to Chips Ahoy once, but I don't mean to belittle what your actual addiction was. I'm sure we've all had our own darkness and struggle. You're just such a very vibrant and light being. It's very difficult to even see. And that's, I think, the testament to your own growth is you're such a light being that the darkness, it's hard to even see the darkness in there. And I think, if anything, just, that's a compliment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I used to be addicted to cigarettes. There's one of them.
Yeah.
I still want to have a cigarette once in a while. You know how many times during the pandemic I wanted to go to the store and buy a pack of cigarettes? Straight up.
Sure.
I just choose not to do it because I can't breathe, essentially. And that, that addiction to cigarettes will lead to other things. It's like all connected. And so what I typically, I'm in a place right now is like, and I appreciate the reflection. I think I'm a light being. I feel like I'm a light being, and I also feel very human. And I think in time, like I want to speak more about everything that I've come up against, and I'm still, in that inquiry. And I look forward. I'd actually look forward to speaking and to sharing more of the humanness of that.
Well, for sure, I should know better, because I do also know that your branches don't stretch to heaven unless your roots stretch down to hell. And that's something that Carl Jung said, and I think it's very much true. Like, we need to know that darkness in order to give us the strength to actually push forward to the light. I don't think someone pops out and it's just like straight light the whole way.
Right.
It seems to not be the way that the universe works. We have to hold that kind of greater polarity, then choose which path we're taking by continually feeding it with the inputs that we get externally, and then the practices that we engage with internally to guide us more towards that energy that we're talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's like a ladder. A ladder's got to stretch. It's got to touch the earth, and then it goes all the way up to the sky.
Yeah.
And you can't. You gotta feel the earth beneath your feet if you want to stand up, and you want to have that connection, that vertical connection. Otherwise, I mean, you could just be floating around in space and not knowing what directions, whatever, and that's also part of it too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I look forward to those moments.
Yeah, no doubt.
So
let's go back to your song for a minute.
Yeah.
When you're saying,
we're doing all right, by the way.
Yeah, you're crushing it.
Cool. I just like, sometimes I have conversations with people, and it's like I almost feel like I'm floating in space at times.
Yeah, like an out of body experience.
Yeah. I just want to check in because
I should have just fucked with you and be like, "No, man, you're fucking blowing it."
Okay.
No, it's going great. So when you're saying we are safe, there's different aspects of that, because what's interesting is the pronoun we can mean a variety of different things, just like the pronoun I.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the ego? Are we talking about the animal? Are we talking about the soul? And that's where it gets kind of interesting. And I wonder if you're making that distinction, or you're actually talking about it across all categories, because certainly the soul is always safe, right? Like, that's as my other spiritual mentor, Ted Decker, he says often, like, our soul is in our Father's house, Father being the oneness, unicity, God, source. Our soul is in our Father's house. Like, we're safe always,
right,
in that. There's nothing that's going to fuck with that. Okay, so got that. Then our psyches seem vulnerable, but ultimately it always seems to work out. But our bodies, for sure, are also vulnerable. But this understanding that if we identify as the soul, so what I'm getting at is, for me, the greatest safety is to recognize, like, oh yeah, the unborn, undying essence of who I truly am is always safe. And while these other things may be vulnerable, they're also inherently temporary anyways, so they're vulnerable to time itself. So let's put less fear into the experience of these things and recognize that, yes, who I truly am is always safe, and these other things are probably safe too.
I mean, I think the way you speak about it is what I wish I wrote. I was like, I wrote the song. I was like literally terrified, really scared of the fate of the world. All my gigs of the year were canceled. I've been a touring musician for the past 15 years, so I was like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Ultimately, it all worked out. A week later, I got a job as the music director of a synagogue in San Francisco.
You were safe.
Boom, But and thank God, like, I have a job. I'm putting on virtual music festivals for, the Jewish community and people like Parangi, putting on like a virtual music festival with my buddy Mose in Guatemala, and like just bringing people together for service to connect people to each other in this time. But even in all that, like, not knowing what was happening with the world, that's kind of like the battle, I think, that that I have as a human being, is like forgetting the innate idea that like we are safe on a soul level, but my human consciousness, my neurosis, being a Jewish man, and it's just a joke, it's like my Larry David internal speaking, like there's aspects of when I actually like feel anxiety and I have fear and But then what happens is when I wake up in the morning and I go and I pray and I do my practice, because I wake up like monkey mind. I wake up scattered a lot of the time, and I sit in meditation and I pray and I do the technology that brings me into the state of consciousness and being safe. Until I get there, I feel scattered at times. And I think that's like kind of like, we live in a world right now where I wouldn't say people are privileged enough to have spiritual technology to depend on. I think because of the new technology coming up and all the new podcasts that are available, people are stepping in and learning these ideals. And that's a great thing. And my hope is more people will find these technologies so they can step into the understanding that we are safe.
Yeah.
But when I wrote the song, I was definitely feeling sorry for the world, for my family, what was happening with the protests, learning about my white privilege, learning about that whole understanding, re-educating myself with what's happening with the wildfires. Just there was so much unsafety in at least the world that I was living in. And then I wanted to write this song because I had this moment where I realized when I stepped into my higher consciousness that this is totally part of the healing. This is a chapter that we were literally born for. We were all born for this time.
Yeah.
All of us were brought back in this moment, in this body, when we said, hey, when Spirit was like, you want to come back to this place, the playground again? Well, we're gonna set you up right now in this spacesuit and on that space, on that spaceship floating out on the Earth, and we're gonna give you some challenges. Are you ready for 2020? I think that probably our soul contract was like, yeah,
hell yeah,
I'm ready for it.
Hell yeah.
So, that's what I'm speaking to. It's like, it's almost like I'm whispering in the ears of every person, and I'm saying, yes, I hear that you're in pain. Yes, I understand you're scared. I'm scared too. And we are safe. And I'm going to walk with you.
That's awesome. A bunch of things came up, and I'll try and track them all down. One was, one of the latter references you made. I was sitting around with another great musician friend of mine, just a beautiful soul. And, he's had his challenges in life too. He's almost not really of this world, it seems.
Who is it?
I don't want to share because I'm about to share his story about it, but I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
Just because it wasn't public, and I wouldn't want to share that. But ultimately, and it's not a bad thing at all. But ultimately, he was like, man, like, I don't know if I would do this again. Talking about incarnation and manifestation in a human being, and I was like, yeah, but imagine we're all chilling up there in our soul pod. And we're looking down, and we can kind of see the direction that the earth is headed, and we know it's going to be running into some trouble, and it's going to need some challenge, and it's going to have to wake up, or the whole game's going to end for a lot of people and a lot of plants and a lot of animals and a lot of other sentient life that's going to be on this thing. And we're looking at it, and I'm like, hey man, they really need us down there. Like, we should go. You really think you'd look me right in the soul eye, in the only third eye that's available in the soul, and say like, nah, they'll figure it out. Right. And he's like, yeah, you're right, bro. Like, I'd be back. And I was like, that's right. And I think all of us, I think that's kind of the way it works. Obviously, that's kind of like a, reductionist view of probably what happens up there. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
But ultimately, this idea that if we did see this, we would be compelled to be like, all right, yeah. Oh, the odds are going to be stacked against us. All right, well, we'll go give it our best. We'll go out on our shields at the very least, and at least know that we came and gave it a go. And I think that's something that always gives me great comfort, is this feeling like, would I choose this? No matter if even it gets way gnarlier. Like, this is actually it's still very manageable. I'm most of my days, I'm just having a lovely day at home, writing and playing in my garden and, practicing spearfishing in my pool.
Wow.
And making love to my wife. Like, my days don't suck during quarantine. So it's like, it could get way worse. And even if it did, would I want to be here? Yeah, of course I want to be here, because I think I can do some good. So like, all right, I don't want it to get worse. I like if this was the maximum bad it gets, great. Like I'm down. However, if it gets worse, like I'm fucking here for it.
Right.
You know, and I think that's something that's really, really comforting. It shifts you from the victim mentality to that kind of warrior mentality. Like, all right, I'm ready for this. I'm built for this.
I love that you said we're here. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it.
You know, it's what stuff like that. Like it's what my coach and I we talk about all the time. So grateful for him. He really changed my life. To have someone, I think, in our lives. I'm gonna say for anyone who's watching this podcast, listening to it, if you can find yourself a coach, someone who, even when we believe, like when we were in that warrior mentality, it's even great to have like somebody to spot us.
Hell yeah.
So to find someone like that to help spot us, and to reflect back to us, even sometimes, you know, as a human being, I have my insecurities, but to have someone remind us of that divinity and to remind us of the power that we have. So it's the things that you're saying right there that just like totally remind me of that. So, yeah. And I know that you're a coach.
I am a coach. And also, you know, yes, having a coach is great, but then having allies like brothers and sisters of the way, like you just met my best friend, Kyle.
Right.
And we'll talk about this stuff all the time, you know, and it's just, I know that no matter what, like he's going to be there. Like he's never going to be the one that runs or shies away from any fight that we're going through. That now actually physically, literally, that's the truth. But also what we're talking about in the bigger game of existence, like he's going to be right there. And knowing, and then the fellowship that I created, Fit for Service Fellowship, knowing that there's 150 people in there that are all like that. Like no matter what anybody's going through, you got a bunch of people going, I'm here for it. Looking around like, you all here for it? Like, yeah, I'm here for it. And it's fucking unbelievable. And that gives me a lot of hope too, because as we were talking before, that connection to tribe, that feeling like you have allies, you feel seen, you feel held, you got people that'll pick you up when you fall, that'll lead ahead, that'll follow, that'll do all of the things that are necessary. It gives this just sense of belonging and peace that's so important. And also all of the mirrors that you get, because without real allies, you don't have mirrors. You know, and then so you're not able to see yourself, and you're not able to see your greatness or your flaws. And that's what a real ally does, is they can hold back that neutral mirror and be like, look at you shining, boy, go. Right. And you're like, yeah, I really am shining. Or they could be like, hey man, you're a little bit lost in the Yetzer hurrah over here. You know, like you wanna chill out, you know? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, you're right. You know, I'm fucking lost my mind. And so that's just so vital. And I don't think human beings can do it without that. We're not meant to. Yeah. We never did it before. Yeah. In our evolutionary history, we never did it before. We always banded together, and we're not going to be able to do it now. And hopefully one of the things that is going to result from this collective stress is people coming together with deeper connections, more rites of passage, more bonds that are, you know, really allow people to be true allies for each other.
100%. Grateful to, you know, also understand and hear about so many, I mean, men's groups, women's groups, trans, non-binary groups that come together and counsel to have these kinds of reflections, to teach people about how to hold space and how to listen and how to also take feedback, you know, and how to show up in a good way, essentially. We're in a fruitful time for that. I started a new group with a handful of musicians recently to create community in this time of pandemic, because, you know, we all lost a lot of the work of, you know, touring. So therefore we're stepping into new aspects of being a musician, you know, signing licensing deals, working on building our social media programs and whatnot. But also we're counseling together. We're essentially like speaking of the vulnerability of the heart and getting to know each other as musicians. Because when we show up to music festivals, we don't really get that opportunity. We see each other at the green when we're like, hey man, great set, you know, let's hang later, you know? Yeah. But it's not like we get to actually counsel and reflect back to each other our greatness and aspects when we're not maybe speaking in the highest or acting in the highest. And so I just look forward to growing in these circles and being part of these aspects of healing moving forward as a musician. Because we really need it too, of course, and especially in the music industry right now. It's been a lot of craziness there. But, you know, speaking too about team, and I just want to mention it that for this song, I licensed it, and I wanted to thank, like, you know, I'm working with this team. They're called Ineffable Records. They released it, this single, and they're a great team. And, you know, they, for me, you know, represent artists that I love. You know, as like on your show, you've had Trevor Hall, and they represent people like Mike Love and Kes the Band, and just a lot of great reggae and conscious musicians. And it's just great to finally be working with people in my life that are able to see my greatness as a musician and as a human being, and being able to help elevate that and market it in a great way. So I just think that, yeah, it's a great time right now in the world that we're in, even though even though there are fires in the world, it seems the world may seem to so many people that it's a confusing and a dark time. I invite whoever's watching this podcast or in this world, and my hope is that people start to open your eyes and call in and be curious and just listen for all the aspects of counsel and change that's happening right now in the world.
Yeah, that's a great prayer. One tangential thing I wanted to go back and cover was, so I uncovered some studies recently where they actually, and you know, poor mice, but they traumatized mice in one generation. And then, you know, basically by creating some kind of like some kind of sensory experience, and then pain associated with that sensory experience. And then they had the mice breed. And then 2 generations later, they would play the same sensory experience. So imagine it's a tone, you know, so a certain tone, and then the grandparent mice would, you know, the grandson and whatever of the second generation offspring of those mice would actually have a trauma response to that same tone. So what they found was that there's an epigenetic passing of traumas. And at least it's not what they found, but what it's showing is a possibility that somehow there's a stored memory of these certain events that have happened in our history, which is really interesting. And it goes beyond, you know, what conventional understanding of the mind might be. And it leads me to wonder, because you mentioned that there's, you know, a common trope or a common stereotype is that there's a Jewish angst, right? Maybe true, maybe not true. However, of many of the people of the world, the hereditary Jews experienced a lot of people coming after them and a lot of fucking challenge from the very start of the game, you know, as they were leaving Egypt, all the way through. I mean, struggle has been a constant where there was basically armies or different oppressive power forces all the way through, of course, the Holocaust, through even what you're experiencing now with the just general anti-Semitism. You have to wonder if this doesn't just pertain to Jews, but if each different race holds potentially their own epigenetic story to that. And so like potentially, and I'm Jewish as well by ancestry, and I've certainly had my fair share of angst. You know, I wonder if there is some transmission of like, we know in our coding, in our actual like DNA, in the story that's beyond anything that's even in our mind, we know that some shit can get really bad. And so we're always like kind of on a lookout, like, is this shit going to be really bad? And it's just curious to me. And I think as time goes on and we understand epigenetics more and we're able to pin this, and obviously we need to show this in humans, but it's interesting to look and say, yes, I think on one level, all human beings are the same, especially on the soul level, 100%. Every soul is the same. So there's no intrinsic value or difference in anybody, because as the most important part of who we are, we're identical. We're all souls, you know, and as people, all the same. We're all of the same. However, differences in the skin are absolutely, who gives a shit? It's skin. Like, doesn't fucking matter. None of the differences matter anyways, but there may be actual intrinsic differences in the genetic coding of people from traumas that are passed down from multiple generations. And I just wonder if that's a reality. And if so, if we actually did figure that out, and it was like, maybe there is something to that, then the ways to deal with that trauma and the ways to heal with that trauma could then be culturally applied through stories, through religions, through different transmissions of ideas of like, oh, these are the people that are in my blood, in my coding. And like, these are some of the rituals that we can use to actually heal and move to forgiveness on for things that didn't even happen in our life, but happen in other lives. And I think, of course, the African American plight is the same. I mean, having slavery in many, at least most probably of the African Americans have experienced that. What is the genetic transmission of that? Not only what's happening now in this life, but like, what is that? And then Native Americans are the same. So it's curious, and it's obviously like something that I think is in some ways challenging to talk about because there's not as much data and science on it. But as it goes on, I think ultimately applying like some sensitivity to that potentiality and being like, all right, well, here's some great rituals and some great stories we can use to help bring all the people back to full wholeness, which can then bring the whole world back to love. Because as you said, it's the pain itself and the fear that creates the divisiveness. It creates the anger. It creates the challenge amongst people. So if we can get to the root cause, even beyond what people think it is, we can get to some of the root cause. It seems to me that could be productive.
Absolutely. It's really well put. You're a fantastic thinker.
Thanks. I do what I can.
Really fantastic thinker, Aubrey. Can you do me a really quick favor? Could you define epigenetic?
So there's the core genetics,
right?
Which are like the core genetics, and then epigenetics are switches that turn off and on, and those can change within days, weeks, months. So that's the variation. So then there's you can't change your actual genetics. That's why if you leave genetic material on a crime scene, you can always pin it to you because your genetics don't change.
Right.
Your epigenetics shift, and that's the upregulation and downregulation of certain gene expressions and certain aspects.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not even epigenetic that's storing the trauma. Maybe it's some other morphic resonance, as Rupert Sheldrake says, that's actually storing the trauma, or it's some kind of, I don't think they've identified exactly what it is that's storing that memory that allows certain mice to freak out when they hear the tone because their grandparents got hurt when they heard the tone, So, and I think that's yet to be explored. And I think potentially it isn't even some aspect of the genetic expression. Potentially it's stored in some non-physical, non-local, non-physical thing like the morphic resonance field that Rupert Sheldrake says. But either way, epigenetics are the variation in the genetic transmission.
So there's this has to do with there are certain gifts essentially that I think all peoples were given when they signed the soul contract. It's crazy. When they signed the soul contract to come back. Essentially, because like Judaism, we believe reincarnation. It's a central principle, and this is the way that I think about it. No matter what people we are, and for instance, I'll tell you a little story. When Spirit went and had the Torah, and this is a mythical understanding. This is something my rabbi told me when I was in Jerusalem. He actually, with the Torah, he like went to these people and it was like, will you be in the covenant with me? Will you say yes? And they were like, no, I won't accept it for what it is, but I'll take this. And then he went to these other people and there was like, of the people of the land, will you accept this covenant and be with my, and they were like, no, we will do everything, but we won't do that. And then went to multiple people and then finally went to the Hebrews, the Jews, and was like, will you accept my covenant? And they were like, yes. And then we became the people of choice. There's this like weird thing in the world. People like, they're like always pissed off at Jews. They're like they think that we're the chosen, like we're like above other people. It's actually not. The gifts that we were given at soul contract level was that we have the superpower of choice. Choice is our superpower. And that all the different, and what I'm saying with that is that I see it as like all people, different peoples. I don't know what all the gifts are from all peoples because I'm not in. I only know my soul reference.
Right.
But essentially, we're given these gifts at soul contract time, and then these certain traumas can happen to us also as a people that are monuments.
Yep.
They're reference points, and when we have enough then personal monuments, that ultimately creates the inner landscape of who we are as a human being, and I think also ultimately polishes the mirror and refines us, so we're that perfect gem, who we are, with perfect fingerprints that make us the unique I or the unique you. And because I haven't studied epigenetics, excuse me, I can't go into depth about that, but I do know that from what I've learned is that we are a makeup of soul contract, we're a makeup of what's happened in this world and trauma, and then we get to who we are. And it's what I know is that from my personal life is that it's how we're showing up and how we're choosing to be and how we're choosing to dance and wrestle with whatever comes up. That's a choice, and it's also based on our ancestry and also handed down how we've behaved and how and what has maybe come up against us. And I think that that's the constant dance that we're in as human beings. It's figuring out in the moment. I was on my way here. I stopped at Veracruz to get some tacos.
Good choice.
It was Ian's recommendation. Amazing, by the way, nice guy. I show up. I didn't know that I needed to order online. Showed up and then I was like, how do I just get some tacos, and I was getting a little flustered, I was forgetting. I was like forgetting, like, what am I doing here? And this really nice woman walked by and she was like, hey, chill out. The tacos are coming, like, relax. And then I was like, oh yeah. Like, I didn't yell or anything, but I got to a place where I was like, in that moment I like totally forgot. And it brought me back, like, in that moment, I was like feeling like, why didn't they put online like that? Why did they put online that you have to order online and blah, 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 like all these things. And then I realized I was like, I'm in a new community. I'm in Austin, Texas. This is how they do things here. Take a breath. It's beautiful. It's raining. I'm going to be a few minutes late to see Aubrey, but we're going to make it work. And so in the moment I thought about all of that, I was able to take in my anger and all the aspects of being a human being. And I made the choice in that moment to take a breath, to text you and say, I'm going to be a few minutes late, and to come here in the right timing. And I think that, it's just part of the human experience, is always remembering, holding our ancestry, holding our ancestors on our shoulders, remembering where we come from, tapping into that place, and at the same time, walking where we are right now, and being present and doing our best to show up, balancing our spiritual higher self and being a human being in the now.
Well, it seems like you're doing your ancestors a service in making that choice, because, and I think that's a beautiful way to reframe that. I actually didn't understand that. Again, I have such a paucity of Jewish information actually when I speak to someone like you. Because I always thought I was the chosen people, and I was like, man, that's a really cocky thing to name yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
to be like, we're the chosen people,
right.
Like, fuck you guys. I was like,
Right.
that doesn't sound cool. But now to understand that it was, no, we're the ones that chose. We're the ones that chose. We're the ones that chose to receive this kind of text. And just honoring that choice is the superpower, and it's a universal superpower.
Right.
And I think the beautiful thing that came to mind is just celebrating every single different culture for all of their gifts, the choices that they made, everything that they brought, even, the traumas which illuminate other gifts always, because wrapped up in these traumatic experiences are amazing gifts. Like, part of my ability to communicate came from the fact that my father would get extraordinarily angry, corner me, and yell at me for hours if I expressed something in a way that he took offense to. So my language abilities became a superpower. Now, of course, there was some trauma I had to deal with from that as well. But with that trauma came a superpower. And I think everywhere we look, there's going to be both pain and the gift that's wrapped up in that pain. But it really takes choice to activate it for all of us. Like we have to choose to not only heal the pain, but then really choose to walk the beauty way in our gift. And
it's the sacred dance.
It is, man. It is.
It's like I go to SAG dance. That's also been like crazy. Not dancing with people in contact, and
yep.
Every time you show up is different, and being able to move with that. We're human beings, and we can't shake being human beings, even though some people would think they're Lumerians, or totally respect that too. But we just gotta like.
I want to hear them say that while they're sitting on a toilet with diarrhea.
I'm a Lumerian?
Yeah. I'm a Lumerian. Like, nah, bitch, you're a human. Like, I see that. That's runs. I see that you ate a jalapeno and your asshole burns, right? Yeah.
Right.
That's human stuff.
Right.
That's human stuff.
We can't forget we're human.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Well, man, this has been it's been beautiful to receive some of your medicine and just to see, this perspective. As I said, it's a perspective that I haven't been able to see through that lens. So I deeply appreciate it. You down to bring us home with the song before we wrap this up?
Happy to do that.
And for those, listening, all of your songs, well, maybe not all of them, but most of your songs are on Spotify. Mikey Pauker?
Yeah, Mikey Pauker.
Pauker?
Pow, yeah.
Pow.
Pow.
Pow,
Yeah,
pow.
Pow, pow, exactly. A lot of people call me Pauker. And when I was a kid, they used to call me Fokker because of Meet the Fockers.
Yeah.
My English teacher used to call me Fokker, but it's Pauker, everybody. Yeah, you can check out the new song "We Are Safe," just released with Ineffable Records a couple weeks ago on Spotify. MikeyPauker. Also, I have a new remix coming out for this song I'm going to sing now called "Rise." DJ Taz Rashid. I'm coming out next week. We got 4 new songs just recorded with Jim Kaufman, who produced this, and we have a whole bunch of new music coming out this year. So.
Hell yeah.
Look forward to checking that out. And then, you could also just follow me on Instagram. It's the best way, or go to my website, MikeyPauker.com. But yeah, thanks so much, Aubrey, for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Absolutely.
You kind of look like, for me, energetically remind me of like a lion, but like a Care Bear, essentially. Like you're literally a heart.
Oh, thank you, brother.
It's like you
a lion Care Bear.
You feel like if I mean, right now, what I would love to do is like give you a really nice hug, because I mean, essentially, like I miss touch. That's a big part of my life.
Yeah, man.
And
big hug is coming.
You just seem like one of the best huggers. So
it's a lot of pressure.
No, it's a lot of pressure. So yeah, this song is called "Rise." I wrote the song about my, I grew up suffering from depression. I had a great family. It had nothing to do with them. For me, it just had to do with, the gift that Spirit gave me that essentially created these songs that are life vests for my life. They're like children. They grow. They grow with me. And this song just is a song that's just asking. It's saying, to not let the world lock us out of our heart and of our soul. And we're all going through it right now in our own ways. We're human beings, and the music has the power of healing. Music has the power of waking us up to our soul essence, what we were talking about earlier. And if you are struggling, you are going through a hard time, I ask you to reach out to me. You can Facebook me, you can Instagram me, whatever ways that you want to reach out. I'm here for you. And when we sing songs, we have the opportunity of uniting. That's what music is. It's the unification of vibration. And so I invite you to sing the song with me. And I can't wait to sing the song together when we're in person again, when the world opens up again for live music. So thanks for being. Compassionate eyes can rip your soul from your seams. There's people lying down with no water to drink. This is a crazy taste of reality, and all love dies, and all love breathe. All love dies, and all love breathe. We gotta rise up, oh, we gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world lock you out of your soul. We gotta rise up, oh, we gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world lock you out of your soul. Hey. Open your eyes to the sight, a million blessings disguising their light. The darkness in the world is real. Have right action, stand on your feet. No matter what path we choose, keep on circling the fractured moon. All one people stands up in your night. Everything is sacred, everyone is sacred. We gotta rise up, oh, we gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world lock you out of your soul. We gotta rise up, oh, we gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world lock you out. When we look inside, yeah, we see this ember. We know this light inside is our love. When we look inside, yeah, we see this ember. We know this light inside is from Jah. We're imitating stars that move and crystal shimmer. We know this light inside is our love. When we look inside and polish the mirror, we know this light inside is our love. When we look inside, yeah, we see this ember. We know this light inside is our love. When we look inside, yeah, we see this ember. We know this light inside is from Jah. We're imitating stars that move and crush and shimmer. We know this light inside is our love. When we look inside and polish the mirror, we know this light inside, yeah. We gotta rise up, oh, we gotta stand up tall. We gotta stand up.
Oh, you want me to
sing with me? Don't let this world lock you out of your soul. Lock you out of your soul. We gotta rise up. We gotta rise up. Oh, we gotta stand up tall. We gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world lock you out. Lock you out. We gotta rise up one more time. We gotta rise up. Oh, we gotta stand up. We gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world. Don't let this world lock you out of your soul. Come on. We gotta rise up, oh, we gotta stand up tall. Don't let this world lock you out, yeah, again. Don't let this world, yeah, lock you out. One more time. Don't let this world lock you out of your heart.
Hell yeah. Beautiful, man. Apologize to everybody for me singing along, but I love it.
Give it for Aubrey, everybody.
A man of some talents, singing not being one of them, but I always enjoy it. It's good to hear your own voice. I think for everybody out there, there's a lot of judgments around voice, and I do not have a naturally gifted voice. It's very difficult for me to carry a tune. I actually had a vocal coach when I did a musical in college,
Right?
And they were like, "We can teach anybody to sing." And eventually, the vocal coach went to the director and was like, "So you can't sing, so you're gonna have to change the song to a chant because I can chant pretty good. I got a pretty good ohm game."
Right.
But anyways,
long
thing.
The way I see it is that we all have a voice, right? And maybe I think different than your coach, but even if we think we can't sing, we open up our mouths to sing.
Something happens.
Magic happens.
Something happens.
So I personally thought, I've sang with a lot of people. I thought you had a really good voice.
Hey, thanks, man. Hey, thanks. I really enjoyed this podcast, and I know people did as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Check out his music. Give him some love. Love you. Love you.
Thanks,
We're
everyone.
out. Thanks for checking out this video. For more like it, please subscribe to my channel. And of course, the Aubrey Marcus Podcast with new episodes every single week. And follow me on Instagram @Aubrey Marcus. Thank you so much.